So, welcome back to the channel, and today is the next episode of the Modern Classic series. Now, thanks very much in part to your feedback, today we are driving the BMW E30 M3. And because of the way we do things around here, we are not driving a normal M3. No, this is the Johnny Cecotto edition, of which I shall share with you exactly why it's called that in just a minute. But first of all, a detailed walk around of the specs and features that set this car apart from your average E30 M3. So here it is. So 16,202 E30 M3s were built, and even though the volume of production may beg to differ, the E30 M3 is considered somewhat of a homologation model, as its primary reason for existence was to enter Group A racing, which was a race series that kind of demanded that each car share its core components with a road car. And at the time, the rules and regulations around that dictated that at least 5,000 examples had to be produced. So BMW awesomely designed the race car first, then applied the changes to make it a road car. And therefore, this is why the E30 M3, to me anyway, has always been known as the special one, because it came from race car DNA before road car, which automatically makes it very cool. I think the thing that stands out first and foremost is these flared boxy arches. These are not just for literal flare, these were designed on the race car to accommodate wider wheels and rubber. But it also became a signature feature of M3s from here on out. I mean, just look at the strake that goes along there. So this is the Johnny Cecotto edition of the E30 M3. It's a limited run of just 505 cars, and it was built to celebrate the many victories of BMW's factory racing driver in the 80s called, you guessed it, Johnny Cecotto. So there aren't actually too many differences between the Cecotto edition and the E30 M3 Evo 2, for example. In fact, it shared the front and rear spoilers, but is further focused as a more driver's car by stripping out a little weight through the use of thinner glass in the windows. So some aesthetic features that were unique to the Cecotto edition were the chrome-tipped exhaust, and this is, I guess, the most standout feature. On the 16-inch alloys, there was this unique metallic black centers, which are only found on the Cecotto edition cars. Alright, let's share a pretty unique feature of the engine bay and discuss the engine before we discuss this unique interior. So, what I quite like about this edition is when you pull the tab, yes, look at that, it sort of slides forward like this and actually pivots from the front. So we open it thus so. Now, not sure if the camera is picking this up, but what was unique to the Cecotto edition was that the engine cover here was painted exactly the same color as the bodywork, which is a really nice feature. 2.3 litre engine, and as the E30 M3's engine was originally designed for racing, you can see it's pretty compact and is relatively high revving. We'll talk about that more when we go for a drive. Special features of the engine include throttle plates for each cylinder, machined intake and exhaust ports, and a crankshaft with 8 counterweights. Interestingly, however, the Cecotto edition retained its fog lights, where if you're familiar with the Evo 2 E30 M3, you might remember that it had brake cooling ducts right about there. Which is funny because this is almost BMW's tip of the hat to performance and the end of series of the E30 M3. So it's odd to me that they left in the fog lights instead of keeping cooling ducts. So importantly, let's discuss the unique features on the interior. So let's just jump straight to it. Plaque right in the middle of the lower dash. This is car 230 of 505, and that was what was really cool about these cars. It wasn't beating around the bush and saying 1 of 505. No, this was number 230, and the plaque is signed by Johnny Cecotto with the BMW Motorsport indication underneath, which is it's just so cool, isn't it? This thing is a homologation car, despite the fact that they ended up building just over 16,000 of the E30 platform. But I love the fact that that DNA is there, and you really do see it resonate through this entire car. Now, the first thing you get the impression of when you're in it is just how small it is. Although I won't talk about driving impressions just yet, I'll run you through the interior a little bit more. Classic dash layout. It's just so pared back and pure and simple. Look, not a single button on the steering wheel. Anyway, unique features of the Johnny Cecotto. Now, optional extras were, I mean, this is quite flamboyant, but an optional choice when you spec to Cecotto was to have bison leather seats, which it looks like this one has been ticked. Very cool, and the patina is developing nicely. As standard, I believe the seats were trimmed with an anthracite M Technic cloth. But there's something about the Bison, isn't there? just timeless. Small detail, but the sills were fitted with special plates with a coloured M3 logo. And even smaller detail, there was also an M footrest. I've also been informed that the top of the gear knob illuminates. I'm not going to get to drive this at night, but I'll just have to take their word for it. And saving the best till last, and arguably the most important feature that was fitted as standard on all Cecotto editions, the cassette tape holder. And so here we are in the land of the organic. Now, let's not beat around the bush. It's 215 horsepower, while at the time was an acceptable amount of poke. By today's standards, it is pitiful. It is mere. However, it's all about the chassis in this thing, the way this thing rides, and the damping as well. The dampers were revised on the Cecotto edition. Oh, and the pedal placements, so well placed for heel toe. Oh, lovely organic match up there. You just blip it, and the pedals as well. They're just right in that the brake pedal is high enough so that when you do anchor on, it becomes in line with the throttle pedal. So when you're rolling your foot over to blip that downshift, meets with your foot perfectly. Now, gearbox is of the dog leg configuration, meaning first gear is back and to the left. Like a dog leg. But I find myself conveniently on this tight, and this is important, tight, twisty British B road. It's important that we're on a tight road because that's kind of where this thing comes into its own. It's very compact. You'll notice that a lot of the modern classics I've been driving, they're small cars. Now, a lot of that comes from this originating, as we said, as a homologated race car platform. But back then, there were less rules and regulations surrounding safety, which means if you look at the A-pillars, it's like a toothpick. Meaning the visibility's wonderful, but the safety is atrocious. So you've got to remember that this car originated off the back of the German Touring Car Championship. Now, when it was in full swing, I was all of about 2 years old, so I can't profess to say that I truly appreciated it, but I am well aware of its history, and I'm also well aware of the hype. Like, that series was so cool. It was so intense, the racing was super close, and it was all of the mainstream major manufacturers going head-to-head, battling it out. So imagine, it's the likes of Mercedes and BMW going head-to-head, and this was born off the back of that. And what was really, oh, listen to that, beautiful. I mean, even for a 4-cylinder, it's wonderful, isn't it? Imagine that, you're able to buy into a slice of that series, almost quite literally, because that's what this was. The reason this car existed was to qualify for that series. And so, as I mentioned at the start, BMW built the race car first. So the chassis, this was always designed from day one to go racing. And so you really are buying into a slice of that very cool DTM history. So let's see what this chassis is all about. We're going to drop it down a few cogs. It just matches up wonderfully. Don't forget, this is a late 80s car. It's done 81,000 miles, 6,500 RPM. It's glorious. And we still have this, it feels organic. I know that might be such a cliche thing to say when you're driving a car that's so old, and we're in this era of everything, you know, having electronically assisted steering racks. You grab hold of this thing, you can feel what's going on. You can feel everything. This car was a little bit more comfortable compared to its slightly more hardcore variant, which was the Evo 1 and 2 that came before it. These seats, for example, are more of a sort of touring spec, whereas the Evos had a more bucket seat, sort of slightly more upright approach. But in this car, it makes it quite usable. It makes it the kind of car that you could go on quite a long journey in. What it does detract from, however, is the amount of vibration and fizz and feel that you would be getting through the seats up in towards one's derriere to let you know what's going on underneath it. Oh, it just encourages you to mess with the gearbox as well. It's so rewarding. But actually it's quite quiet. I mean, interestingly, despite the fact that this was based off the back of a car that would go into a pretty hardcore racing series, It's not a dramatic sense of power, but it still got plenty of power for overtaking. Even the left-hand drive variant of this car, actually this was only available as a left-hand drive variant. There was, if you want to get really picky, while there were 505 of the Johnny Cecotto edition cars, there was also a UK-specific edition to celebrate BMW's other works driver, Roberto Ravaglia, of which these were very limited. They only made 25 edition of the Ravaglia M3s. However, they were still counted towards the total 505 of this platform because they were essentially identical. So those you were able to get in right-hand drive, whereas the Cecottos are all left hookers. So at 215 horsepower, yes, it's not exactly packing a punch. However, this car is all about power to weight, because even with fuel, a full tank of fuel, this car is coming in at 1,200 kilograms. 1,200 kilograms. I mean, what was I saying earlier about safety and all that sort of jazz? I mean, 1,200 kilograms today, you would class as a really light car. So even with 215 horsepower, this thing still manages to not only pick up pace incredibly well, but once you get it up to speed, the way that it flows and floats through corners, it's just got its own feel about it. 1,200 kilograms, that's so cool! There's also definitely this inherent build quality that surrounds this car. I mean, it's, 30 years old. It just feels so solid. There's definite refinement. Considering I'm driving it today and I still think it feels great, imagine what this must have been like when it launched. I mean, there's no wonder. I mean, combined with their incredible racing success at the time, but also outstanding build quality, refinement, usability, there's no wonder that the M division of BMW quickly gained such cult status. I mean, they're awesome now. So imagine what it was like 30 years ago when they pulled this out the bag. There you go, world. Have a slice of that. That is how you build a car. You're probably also picking up on the fact that it doesn't really sound that great, which is interesting because it's not a turbocharged car. This is a naturally aspirated car, but it's kind of muted, isn't it? Certainly from the exhaust point of view, and that's an interesting thing to compare as well. Today, we're all about the sound of exhausts when it comes to sports cars and supercars. The majority of the hum and fizz in this is up front there. It's that little compact four-cylinder engine vibrating away nicely. And when you do get it up to around about 6.5, which is when you feel like you want to be shifting gear, it does ultimately top out at 7, or at least the rev counter tops out at 7. But when you're snatching it back at 6.5, that's when the body is alive. That's when the whole thing is resonating to a wonderful crescendo. You snatch that extra gear and up it builds again. It's wonderful. You're creating your own story between every gear shift. And so there we have it. Thanks very much for your feedback, suggesting to drive the E30 M3. As I mentioned, we didn't get any old M3. This is the Johnny Cecotto edition. It's not that well known, this car, so on top of me sharing what it's like to drive, I hope I have opened your mind to this other world of M cars. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Also, more comments below, please, as to other cars you would like to see driven as part of the Modern Classic series. I am loving sharing these cars with you, and I'm loving how much you guys are loving it as well. There's some really exciting cars to come. We've got some pretty big hitters, some smaller cars as well from this series and this wonderful era, so stay tuned. Please be sure to like and subscribe because we've got some fantastic insights coming soon. As always, thanks for watching. I shall see you next time. Ciao!